moving on, our next speaker is Tracy De Liu. She is the co-founder of Futureland. Today, she will be talking about post-COVID future of work. So I would like to invite Tracy to please share screen and share your thoughts about post-COVID future of work. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Now you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. I'm just going to slide this around so that I can see everybody here. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. This future we're about to get into is a very exciting place. And the Office of the Future in particular is a place where 8 hours a day we're all going to need to spend some time, and it's going to be pretty different. I don't know about most of you, but for the last 6 months, I've been working wherever I felt like it. And this photograph on the main screen here is where I spent my summer working out at the lake, spending my time online. But I've been doing remote working for about 25 years now, with teams all over the world, some of them in offices, some of them working remotely. I've used Upwork for years, and before that, a number of other tools that helped me work with other remote workforce participants. I've covered e-commerce for my whole career, but it's led me into a number of different technical situations. And again, working with a global workforce, you had to be online, and you had to get good at being able to work and focus and be productive wherever you were and block out all of the other noises. So for the past, again, 33 years or so, I've been doing that. What we're going to talk about is 3 big things today in the next 25 minutes. We're going to talk about how to get back to a consistent workplace operation by monitoring, assessing the changing employee needs. For me, my needs changed over 33 years, and what became a great work experience for me in my remote world changed over the years. So we're going to talk about a little bit of that. And we're going to talk about how workspaces in general have changed. Regardless of whether you are sitting in an office or at home, your workplaces now include cloud spaces for sharing documents and partner spaces for collaborating with others. So besides just your location, who and how and where you're working is also changing. And we're going to talk about the important tools for advising your reintegration strategy and the resulting data that helps define your path forward. We can now measure and monitor and record everything because we're all working digitally. And that really changes how you can use that data to make changes in your organization. So the new measures that we need to talk about are the kinds that allow people to work consistently. And my experience has been using project performance and project management tools are the way to do that. With everybody working in different locations, the need to stick to the same game plan is more critical now than ever. So what I've found are things like Workday or Monday or Copper Project are the kinds of tools that everybody can be a resource in, and everybody can stick to the same work breakdown schedule, and everybody knows what each other is doing. Without that, I've found in managing remote teams, you spend a lot of time questioning what each person is doing and are they consistently delivering the tasks that they're supposed to be. And task logs and individual work logs work great as well, but the monitoring of employees so that each employee knows what the other person is doing also helps deliver all of the projects on time and on budget. And the employee satisfaction of being in the loop tends to be much higher if you're doing it that way. What I also found is that using Slack or tools like that to run a consistent dialogue across all the people in your company really make them feel like their voice is being heard and they have a say. And over the years, we found that because everyone is digital, doing the surveys end up being very much more effective than they have been when people weren't working remotely, again, because they want to have a voice. And we've also found, even over the last 6 months with some of my clients, the one-on-ones are much better because people aren't bothered as much by the noise all around them. They can speak their piece and talk about how things are really working for them. And through these discussions, new patterns of how to get back to this consistent workplace operation have emerged. As an example, if you have 7 or 8 people working in different parts of the city, but they do need to get together to collaborate, now they will tell us in these surveys and dialogues that they'd rather find a location that's common to the 8 people to come together and meet there during this COVID distancing, instead of everybody having to commute into the office to meet. So new pop-up workplaces are happening as a result of these dialogues with all of the people in the offices. And for those that are going back, a lot of offices in Canada anyways are going back, the IoT devices are beginning to really show a prominent role in the office in monitoring how many people are in monitoring air control. In some new innovations are actually installing machines in the rooms to sense if there is disease in the room. We're not sure how well those are going to work, but the challenges that we had before COVID in the IoT world and using it to have more office place and workplace management didn't go away, fortunately. They got fast-tracked. So again, these tools were available before. They were definitely in consideration, but now they're really urgent and being implemented. So what we could do radically different if we were considering how to get into this workplace of the future, we could use EAs, executive assistants, that were robots or artificial intelligence. Like we use Siri now to turn on our music or turn on our lights or check on things on Google. Executive assistants of the future, who are artificial intelligence, will do activities for you as a secretary might. So book meetings, reserve the use of an asset, coordinate travel, coordinate meals, do document reviews. A lot of things that, in the 50s and 60s, it was a big thing to have your own secretary. And then over time, executives started doing more of their own. And so now the executive assistant is a bit of a rare bird. But with AI coming, that's all really going to change. And then there is an executive assistant for everybody. Can you imagine if your staff didn't have to do the mundane tasks and those were to be automated? People fear for their jobs, but in reality, it's going to end up giving them some more time for their jobs. And that includes robotic process automation as well, which for all low value added activities like completing forms and the document exchange that goes on in B2B especially, robotic process automation, or the batch processing of forms, as we used to call it, is really a game changer. So things like that start to become more important when we look at, if we could do it really differently and do it much better, what would we do? The other thing that's come up really a lot in the last 6 months in terms of the office of the future, and what we've learned now, is that this family support and the wellness, are you feeling okay? Do you have to take care of your elders? Do you have to take care of your children? Those things have been weighing heavily on people's mind forever and ever. It's only now during COVID where it's right in our face that it becomes so much more important. And so as CEOs and executives in business, we have to factor that in and think about how maybe we're incorporating more childcare and elder care and mental illness support and wellness support, yoga rooms, things like that, for our employees, to give them a better workplace operation, not just a consistent one and a returned one. And also the working at home and working remotely we still need to be very consistent, and we need to be fast and reliable. And those aren't things that we often rewarded in the past, but now we really need them. And if you think about the bureaucracies of pre-COVID, everything at governments, especially in very large corporations, could move very slowly and not be very reliable or timely. And now with everybody working together, new measures need to come in place. And those things as personal performance measures, I think are going to help everybody get back to this better workplace. So we need to continue to think about how the workplace was before, but what was bad about it, and what could we do now that would make it better, so that when we all do return, and I'm sure we all will return at some point, even if not full force to offices, that we will have something better to look forward to instead of how it was before and, you know, the drudgery of it all. So we're going to reassess the workspaces now that we are all working differently. So the workspaces of the past, we were talking about how we would remove the walls and have open workspaces, and now walls are going back in. And before we were talking about, you know, little collaboration, little tiny work areas within the open concept where you could go in and have smaller meetings. These things are absolutely not going to continue unless they're individual spaces. So now we need to look outside of the office building for where we're going to get more spaces. Like I mentioned at the top of our session, I've worked from my cottage, from my car if I have an hour, from hotels all around the world, from offices, from client sites, wherever it needs to be. That became my office space. Cyberspace was my office space. This video space, this becomes our office space. Now we need to consider how we're going to merge this family space with workspace, and how we're going to make sure that everybody in all the spaces that we're responsible for are being well cared for. And that's where we can bring in some of the workspace of the future ideas from pre-COVID. Things like, if everyone's going to be at home for a long period of time, working in the basement, their personal space, their eating space, living space, we should start looking at the lighting. Because poor ergonomics from people working at home, whether it's how they're sitting, how the lighting is, how the air quality is, the noise, the distractions, cleanliness, all of this really makes a difference in how a person's day turns out. If you're staring at your screen 8 hours a day, your eyes go. And up until now, many people were, you know, touring around their office, having the water cool conversations, and they weren't sitting in a chair all day, staring at a screen all day. So now we need to get up and walk around. We need to stretch our eyes. We need to get fresh air. We need to make sure that the lighting is right, the chairs are right. And that will help us work better in whichever space we happen to be in. And now that we're in this new world order, we also have these other spaces. If we're to do it differently, we can use cloud spaces to be the central repository for everybody, instead of VPNing through your network from home into your server at the office. So externalized private clouds for storage mean that data is always on the cloud, always available to management, and not locked on the desktops of people who are working from home. For those of you who have ever managed CRM systems or client systems, you know that if things are isolated down to people's desktop and they leave the organization, it's quite a scramble to rebuild who their client list was and what they're doing. So getting cloud-based for everything is going to ensure you have the right versions, you always have the current information, and it's a habit change, but it'll also change how the software is run and architected and executed for your business if everyone is working remotely and working in these cloud spaces. And besides the project management tools, some of these collaboration tools for the non-physical work is going to be really different. You know, making videos together, making documents together, creating product designs together. People are going to have to learn how to to do their work in different workspaces and get really good at it, and get really good at iterations on teams and sharing documents so that revisions and edits from a team into one document in the cloud works better. Instead, remember the old days where we used to attach it to an email and send it around? That's not going to work when nobody is in the same office anymore. So we have to figure out how to work remotely, but do it together and record and measure everything so we can always go back and look at it again. Okay, so we're going to talk about the tools and data for reintegration, because this is the trick, right? We have a changing landscape all the time, and we don't really know what the tipping point will be where we can all resume or quasi resume working together in the same space or similar spaces. Some of the technologies and tools that are coming right now are coming fast and furious. I'm sure you've all heard of them. The ones that are exciting are the UV lights, IoT devices that are able to shine a cleansing light in areas or on items. So as people walk in to an office tower or to a building, they may go through lights similar to what we do at the airport, where they're, the airport ones are checking us for bombs. These lights are going to blast off the germs. We're going to end up having apps that really monitor our health from the moment you wake up. They're maybe going to take your temperature. Maybe they're going to do some, saliva assessment. Not really sure how it's all going to work out, but we're going to have to know who's sick, whether it's COVID or now we're aware of these kind of germs and how they transfer. We're going to have apps that tell us who's sick and why they're not coming in. And then teams are going to have to adjust because they may be sick, but they're sick at home and they're still able to work. So how are we going to be consistent and have a workplace where people possibly are coming and going due to illness? So we're going to have to figure out how to be an agile workforce. And that's going to require pretty fast reactions to data picked up. Imagine if you're an Ernst & Young and you have 240,000 people around the world, you've got a lot of data that you're going to have to be grabbing about people's health and figuring out how meetings are going to change. That's why you might want to have your executive assistant be an AI app so that you can adjust as people appear sick and situations change. Sanitization programs for common spaces, for shared spaces, for personal spaces, those are going to have to get even more aggressive than they have been so far, or we're going to keep having waves 3, 4, and 5. So that takes time. And in our rushed world, we're going to have to accommodate more downtime, more cleaning time, things like that. So again, the whole coordination and orchestration of the workforce is going to be a bit more dynamic, and that's going to have to come from data. So how else do you let people move around, let people use the assets they need for their office, use the supplies, and do it with less staff? And I think the answer to that is the near frequency tags for access and monitoring. So as employees and teams move about the building, they're using a personal tag and a physical tag on the asset to check in and out different items, to be able to use and book rooms, things like that. So we're less into touching everything with our dirty little fingers and more about having tags and those tags can be monitored throughout the entire facility. So now you have a management dashboard about where everybody is and what everybody is doing that can help. Do we have enough space? Are we using our space right? Do we have enough assets? Is the asset used every minute of every day? Therefore, we need an extra one. So there's a lot of data that we're going to be able to garner out of these tools that are going to help us optimize the workspace and the assets and how the humans use everything. And the ongoing ask of the employees, the constant question of, are you okay? What do you need? What kind of tools? That dialogue has to get a bit more open and figure out exactly how staff can tell management with priority when they need something different. So if we're talking about taking a slightly different, more aggressive path where we learn from what we've done already, then let's talk about providing options for workplaces. So you can go into the main office. You of course can work from home, but maybe there is a few shared workspaces around, so you're not commuting in all the time. Because I think that's really, in the conversations with clients that I've had, that's the thing people don't want to do anymore, is the long commute. So why not pop into a workspace, or you know, ad hoc places where people can come together and work, instead of just what has been come into our office or get a new job. So we're going to have a lot of different choices for people, and including, I think, pods in people's homes. I think it's tricky for everybody with children and old people running around to try and focus. And I'm seeing new designs for these little tiny, like, 4x4 pods, where people have the right lighting, the right air, the right ergonomics, the right screens, and they're away from the rest of the people in their household. Keyboard tracking of staff, all the software things that can be used to monitor staff, those are sensitive for sure. They make people feel like they're being watched, but it's the only way to catch a slacker, I must say. Having run many, many big teams, the people who are doing their work don't mind about it. And whether you want to go with straight camera operations, watching remote people, that again crosses a bunch of lines. So there's going to be some of those sensitive conversations that have to happen around how staff is being monitored, how their activities are being reported, if the project management side of things doesn't work out. So the technical collaboration for tools for people is essential. But I'll end sort of on the last note about the cultural team building alternatives. We used to get together. We used to have the water cool conversations, and we used to build team events. But now you sort of have to do this separately. So I urge leaders to consider doing things like scavenger hunts, where there's a list of 20 things, be it online or physical things. This is a game. Somebody's got to run around and find all of these goals. Maybe it's signs, maybe it's rocks. You've all probably seen TV shows where people are traveling all over the world on a scavenger hunt. So scavenger hunts are a great way to get people doing things separately but being on a team. So are things like a golf team. Everybody goes out and golf once a week and they compare scores. Or a yoga team where everyone is doing yoga at the same time but in different places. So events that are coordinated and synchronized and include people working on teams but doing it separately, those are some of the things you can start thinking about for cultural team building alternatives. And anything in the charity world also is turning out to be a great bonding experience. So if everybody on the team has to get X number of hours of charity work in, and then they're competing with other teams, that's really bringing the team back together, bringing that reintegration. So lots of things to think about and talk about in the future as we bring our offices and our people back together. But hopefully these have been some things to think about. And my apologies for the conflicting technology today. Usually it works, but thank you very much for your time, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Tracy. It was a great presentation. So if there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to ask. I have one quick question.
Okay.
So I know there are emerging technologies which are being used, such as AI chatbots and robots and other things. But do you think these technologies will replace humans? Like how we can have a balance where emerging technologies can, like facilitate humans instead of replacing humans?
So I don't think that technology will ever replace humans. I think that if you speak to the average person, if they didn't have to do 2 or 3 hours of administrative or non-value added activities. They feel they could do more for their customers, their colleagues, their partners. I feel like with every advance we have in artificial intelligence, robotic process, robots, it frees up humans for bigger thoughts and better actions and better service. And every sector I look across, where you automate one thing, it pops up a whole bunch of opportunities to deliver better customer service. If we could take and automate all the bureaucracy in the government, imagine if the government could then turn around and deliver more personalized services. So I think with each automation, there is further work that humans can do and do differently and betterly with higher quality.
Okay, good. Um, any other questions from the audience? Okay, so in terms of this new normal, what do you think will be the key trends of future work in the new normal?
I think really project management, where everything is centralized. So every single activity that's happening in the business and with business partners is happening on a project plan. I think that's the number one big thing that's going to change. It's been looming for years, but now this is a big impetus because now we're all connected. And I think innovation is going to be the big thing. You know, we have learned that we can very quickly switch from being kind of an analog world who was just dabbling with digital to a fully digital world. And I think now that we all have this appetite and speed of change, we're going to find we can do more, better, differently, and repeat. And innovation is going to come more aggressively.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Any questions, Sunil, or any other one, please feel free to ask. So I think that's all, Tracy. Thank you very much. And
Thank you
for your time. And it was a great presentation. We learned about so many good ideas from you. And we'll keep in touch and have a great day. And I think it's early morning in Canada, and enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.